What's up, Towson Tigers? My name is JD and I'm one of the new psychologists here at Towson University's Counseling Center. It's very nice to meet you. This mini video series was created to serve as a resource for Black identified students to both provide support and acknowledge our commitment to addressing systemic racism directly. Throughout the 3 videos, my colleague Liz and I will introduce you to racial trauma. We'll talk about some of its effects on the mental health of Black Americans. We'll identify some coping strategies or different ways that you can take care of yourself, particularly during this time. And lastly, we'll talk about ways that you can get involved in your community through activism and advocacy efforts as we all fight for an anti-racist America. Let's go ahead and dive into that first video, which is going to give you some background context and information on racial trauma and its effects. As we begin the academic year, we at the Counseling Center thought it was imperative that we acknowledge the racial trauma that is heavily impacting Black communities nationwide. We grieve with the rest of the TU community regarding the racially motivated violence and murders that we've witnessed across our country.
With the murders of unarmed Black Americans, including Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, and numerous others at the hands of police, the country has been forced to grapple with the cruel and harsh reality that has pervaded the U.S. for centuries. The deeply entrenched and long-standing history of dehumanization, violence, oppression, and systemic racism that has plagued Black and African American communities. We recognize that these ongoing tragedies only compound the stress of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and its particularly traumatic impact on communities of color. In a recent press release, the president of the American Psychological Association acknowledged that in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are also living in a racism pandemic, which is taking a heavy toll on African American citizens. The health consequences of racism are dire. Racism is associated with a host of psychological consequences, including depression, anxiety, other serious and sometimes debilitating conditions, including post-traumatic stress disorder and substance use disorders. Additionally, the stress caused by racism can contribute to the development of cardiovascular and other physical diseases. Let's define racial trauma. Racial trauma, or race-based traumatic stress injury, is when someone experiences, witnesses, or is confronted with an event or events that involve actual or threaten emotional or physical pain stemming from racism in the form of harassment, discrimination, or discriminatory harassment. Racial trauma causes wounds to individuals, groups, and communities. When the impact of these repeated traumas is felt on the societal level, this is what we would refer to as collective trauma. Many of the symptoms of racial trauma experienced at the individual level can also manifest at the community level. Regardless of whether you are personally connected to a traumatic event, your sense of order and safety may feel compromised in its aftermath. Individual responses to a trauma will vary. Some reactions may go away on their own, while others may show up at a later date. Here are some of the common reactions to racial trauma. They include re-experiencing, increased arousal, avoidance, and dissociation. It is important to note that our reactions to racism are natural and reflect the trauma and injury that we have endured as Black people. They are not necessarily indications of mental health disorders. If signs and symptoms persist for a long time and begin to interfere with everyday life, it might be time to talk with a trained professional. For Black people experiencing any of these symptoms, it can be particularly difficult to seek out support. The historical and contemporary instances of mistreatment by authorities have led African American communities to mistrust authorities and medical institutions. Additionally, disparities in access to quality healthcare and treatment, as well as the stigma and perceived judgment around seeking help for mental health challenges, serve as major barriers that discourage Black people from seeking out help.
The truth is that recognizing the need for help and seeking out help are actually strengths. Please know that here at TU, help is available and accessible. The Counseling Center staff, myself included, are committed to supporting the needs of all students, including those of Black and African American students who may be experiencing signs of racial trauma. All you have to do is take that first step. Give us a call and let us know you're ready for an initial consultation. That's a same-day appointment. From there, we'll be able to develop a course of treatment that is unique to meet your needs, whether that's using resources in-house or using those in the local community. In the second video of this mini-series, my colleague Liz is going to give you a rundown of different ways of coping within the face of racial trauma.
Before I hand things off to Liz, here's the information you'll need to get in touch with us. Visit us at our website, contact us by email, or give us a call, 410-704-2512.